I want to go now, as promised, to Ryan Crosswell. He is a former federal prosecutor who resigned after the DOJ decided to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Ryan is now running as a Democrat for a U.S. House seat in the state of Pennsylvania. So, Ryan, I appreciate your time, in the context of the fact that you resigned after the DOJ decided to drop those charges. As you watched Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, today, and you have had a chance to see her, I played some of the clips there, but you were able to watch it in full. You worked in the DOJ under her leadership. What was your reaction to what you saw today?
Thanks for having me, Erin. It is so hard to watch. And I would ask the American people, does that look like an attorney general, or does it look like a spokesperson for the president? Those were fair questions she was being asked by those senators about Tom Homan, about Jeff Epstein, about the National Guard being deployed into our cities, and she stonewalled them. And I guess we shouldn't expect anything better from a Department of Justice that's instructed attorneys to stonewall judges. But I just think it's so sad because the mission of the Department of Justice is so important, and that's their leader.
So on the issue of Comey, right, as we pointed out, days before the actual charges came down, Trump is posting Pam : time for action, right? That we know happened. And I played some of her exchanges with Senator Klobuchar and Senator Blumenthal. Let me play a little bit more with Senator Blumenthal. Here it is.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there were a lot of people there that night. That's a great picture.
Was James Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture.
I mean, she's making a mockery of it.
Completely. And just to go back to what happened there, President Trump essentially posted an enemies list in that tweet. Then he appointed his personal attorney to indict the case because nobody else in that office would do so, which she did, and then they promised more prosecutions. And I believe that Mr. Comey will ultimately be vindicated. I think there's going to be strong grand jury misconduct motions, vindictive prosecution motions, and selective prosecution motions. But it's going to come after the American taxpayers have wasted a bunch of money on this prosecution.
So what do you think about, as Evan was laying out, Lindsay Callaghan adding these two new lawyers from North Carolina, two prosecutors, not from the actual office where this is coming from?
It's so telling. The Eastern District of Virginia is one of the most prestigious U.S. attorney's offices in the country. And that talent, to me, says they can't find a single federal prosecutor in that office that's willing to do the case and says she needs help. I think it's very telling.
When you talk to your former colleagues, are people feeling, do you think more people are going to leave, or are people saying that they feel they need to stay?
I think morale is way down. I've heard a statistic today that maybe 5,000 people left the Department of Justice since inauguration. And I think what American people need to understand is how dangerous that is. The Department of Justice protects us from terrorists, from drug dealers, from violent criminals, from child predators, and competent federal prosecutors are being driven out and being replaced by hacks that are more concerned with protecting the president of the American people. And that's why I'm running for Congress in PA 7.
All right, so Tom Homan.
Sure.
Tom Homan has not been indicted, right? There were reports that there's this video of the bag of cash changing hands, and it was an undercover businessman. Right. This is all from the New York Times reporting. Bondi deflected the question, said go to Kash Patel, the FBI director, who, by the way, does report into her. But what do you think is going on here? I mean, it obviously defies credulity to imagine that she would not know about the existence of a videotape in this case, given all the coverage that's come with it.
I think it's a continuation of what I witnessed firsthand at the Justice Department with Eric Adams' case. It is the Trump administration protecting his friends and pursuing its opponents. It's the same thing. I've prosecuted bribery cases where a bag of cash was handed over. It's as solid a case as you can possibly have. And the most galling part about it is the Pam Bondi has the audacity to say that nobody's above the law. But we know that's not true. Eric Adams is above the law, Tom Homan's above the law, and apparently anyone contained in the Epstein files is above the law.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ryan Crosswell, as we said, resigned over the lack of an Adams, what happened with Adams. And now I want to bring in Ty Cobb, former Trump White House lawyer. And Ty is here with me, which is wonderful. And obviously the circumstances are not, which is that we're in this unprecedented moment that we are in. Can I just start with Lindsay Callaghan and hiring those two prosecutors from North Carolina who are not part of the Eastern District of Virginia, which, as Ryan just pointed out, is one of the prestigious districts in the U.S. system. What does that say to you?
I agree with Ryan. It says that they couldn't find anybody within 500 miles to show up in court and choke down the humiliation of trying to defend the United States in that case.
So what happens here then? Comey's arraignment tomorrow. What do you expect? As I said, the reporting has been wide, right? That they wanted the big spectacle, that there was a discussion about whether an arrest, but then maybe now, no, they're just going to let him quietly turn himself in. What happens? So
the reporting is now that, things should go, civilly and with the ordinary propriety that these events are afforded. But I don't put anything past them. I think we saw today from the Attorney General how low the representatives of the Department of Justice are willing to go. I hope that it goes normally, and I suspect certainly once it gets to the judge, it will. The judge is a very serious man, very experienced, not remotely political or a showman, and he'll try to ensure the sanctity of those proceedings.
What did you make of Pam Bondi today, right? I mean, the point of her presentation clearly was to show, disgust and disregard, right? That is what she wanted to convey. That is what she conveyed. Have you seen something like that before? Never. I think today she achieved one thing. She knocked John Mitchell off the perch of reprehensible attorney generals as number one, despite his guilty plea and time in jail.
Blatant defiance of the norms, a cover-up, and a creep toward authoritarianism that comes with singling out people for prosecution because they are personal adversaries or there's some kind of personal animus, which is Donald Trump's trademark. And the reason why I dwelled on it, and I made clear at the beginning of the hearing, was that this kind of selection or malicious prosecution is against every ethic, every norm in our criminal justice system. When I was the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, federal prosecutor there, or the Attorney General for 20 years, I knew the most important decision I made was whether to charge someone. Nobody recovers completely from a charge. And when we have an authoritarian state that singles out James Comey or Tish James or any of the other 9 or 10 people that are now under investigation, it could be anyone. Today it's Comey, tomorrow it can be you. If the President of the United States wants to single you out.
I agree that what we saw today was unbecoming of the office that she holds, both because she was unwilling to answer questions and because she seemed to have come with an oppo doc with a line for each of you and turned it into an I'm rubber, you're glue situation. At the same time, it's clear what's happening inside of DOJ, both from the reporting and from the prosecutors who are choosing to leave. I'm sure you saw this reporting we have from our colleagues at MSNBC that a top prosecutor from that same Eastern District of Virginia office is basically preparing to be fired, UC, because she's unwilling to bring charges against New York AG Tish James. You have Halligan, who is now running that office. She doesn't have line prosecutors who are willing to do the work because they know it's bogus. So she's now had to go outside of her office and get prosecutors from the state of North Carolina to come and actually do the work. Do we really not know what is happening inside DOJ? Do we need to hear it from Pam Bondi, or are our eyes and ears enough?
We need to hear it from her, but our eyes and ears provide the factual basis for the questions we were asking. The reason why I was asking whether Donald Trump has instructed her at that dinner, for example, the night before Comey was indicted, that small dinner, I held up the poster showing her at the table with Donald Trump at dinner. Well, we need to hold her accountable. She is the Attorney General of the United States. She's the one who is recruiting these prosecutors from all over the country to do her bidding when the career professionals have integrity and conscience and conviction and turn her down. So I think this kind of accountability has to be imposed, and that's the reason that we had this oversight hearing. And what is astonishing is how many questions she refused to answer and how she lashed out with those personal attacks. She had a dossier on every single Democrat, and she used them on every single Democrat to attack them when she didn't want to answer a question.
Michael, can I just say something really quickly about, because it's on this exchange here, which is, can you imagine this happening with a different administration, where a senator would bring up a photo of the person who runs the DOJ dining with the president the night before something like this happens, and the response from the person running DOJ wouldn't be like, I'm offended by the question. Of course not. I would never have that conversation. I understand the responsibilities of my office. There was only one right answer, and she refused to give it.
Well, she refused to give it because she couldn't give it, because that was not part of how she...
It would be a lie.
It would be a lie.
Yeah, she's not okay about lying about herself.
Right. And the reality of it is, as I said in the last segment, she is a grade A political hack in a job she should not be in and would not otherwise be in under any other Republican administration, period. Only Donald Trump would pick Pam Bondi to serve as Attorney General of the United States. Only Donald Trump would pick Kash Patel to serve as Director of the FBI. Only Donald Trump would pick Pete Hegseth to serve as Secretary of Defense. Not war, okay? So the reality of it is, Senator, in light of what you just said and the point that Alicia just raised, how then do you do oversight? Because right now you've got cabinet secretaries that will come before your committee and basically tell you to pound sand.
You could see people are speaking out, and they're saying, we know Trump, we know him, we know how all of his schemes operate. You got senators with decades of experience, and you have people on the inside who left saying, I can't work with this. I can't do it. I was either going to get fired, because you've seen people speak out after getting fired, or I'm going to quit. Or, you know, we've talked about this. One of these things where do this or you get fired. Do this or we're going to make your life a hell and we're going to ruin your career. You know, and so people in some cases have left saying, well, I'm not going to break the law. I'm not going to violate, you know, conduct I have as a lawyer. Like, you know, when you take the bar exam and, you know, you have to promise in a sense that you're going to be honorable as a lawyer, right? And so I'm not going to do it. And you have all these people saying, we know how the nuts and bolts work. We know how the nuts and bolts work in the Senate. We know how the nuts and bolts work at the DOJ. We know how the nuts and bolts work within the broader legal profession. Remember, many senators are lawyers, right? And they're saying that what we're seeing is, one, it's not normal. Of course it's not normal. But it's more than just abnormal. It's unprecedentedly abnormal, and therefore it's unprecedentedly dangerous, right? And I think people really need to get this. What you're seeing are the steps you take to move towards increasing authoritarianism. Now, it's not done yet, and who knows where Trump stops? Who knows if he stops? Who knows where there are people around him and any red lines they might have? But you can't bank on any of that. You have to resist him every step of the way, because what some people have noted, and I think this is important, Donald Trump and his cronies are acting like there aren't any more elections coming. Now, that could just be stupidity and hubris and ego. Like they're convinced he's actually winning by 40 and the polls are all lying and blah, 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 blah. Or you could be convinced that Trump doesn't really care about the midterms either way because his name's out on the ballot. Like, who does he care? But like, this is how you act when you don't care what the voters think, right? And if they are going to move towards no more elections or no more free elections as they're currently understood, these are the steps you take, and we have to be cognizant of that.